And we're live. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dense Thinkers podcast. We're going to be discussing things. Ben is going to give us a quick summary of the Sorcerer and what that entails for Zarathustra. We'll also be going over Retired from Service, which is quite an intriguing passage, so please stay tuned in.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, starting off strong with the Sorcerer. We're coming off a hot episode where Zarathustra was wandering through the forest and he came upon a man who was putting his arms in the lake and having leeches come up and suck his blood. And he even dared to call Zarathustra the biggest of all leeches. Next, we have the Sorcerer, an individual, as you can imagine, with sorcery, especially with Dark Souls, how it's relying on intelligence and deceiving. That's exactly what's happening here. This man, the Sorcerer, is deceiving Zarathustra. How is he doing so? He's pretending to be the ultimate pessimist. He's flailing around, dramatically exclaiming powerful words such as, "Oh God, how you betray me," and "this life is not worth living," and how life is such a shameless thief, and all of these things. Getting Zarathustra quite worked up himself, where he finally could not take it anymore, and like the stereotype of when someone's acting hysterical and you just slap them in the face, he does that, but with a fat stick. He slaps him with his fat stick. And then the man revealed to Zarathustra, "Oh, but I was deceiving you. I don't actually think like that or act like that. I did that to kind of evoke something out of you." And that's when the man revealed himself to be not just a sorcerer, but the pennant of the spirit. "It was I played. You yourself once invented this expression," the man says to Zarathustra. "The poet and sorcerer who at last turns his spirit against himself. The transformed man who freezes through his bad knowledge and bad conscience." So this is more revealing of this character, someone who is, maybe you could say, stunned by previous failures and has become sour in his life. He is an old man, so maybe he has a lot of regrets. Zarathustra responds, though, through this deception, that "I am not on my guard against deceivers. I must be without caution, so my fate will have it." In other words, you cannot live in this paranoid world of thinking that people are out to get you or people are always deceiving, because then it's going to poison your pure blissful experience. If there are deceivers, let it be so, and do your best to not get deceived, like stabbed in the back too hard, but you don't want it to let it impede you on your enjoyment of life. And then the man reveals more about himself. He says later on the next page, 269, he says, "I wanted to appear a great man, and I convinced many. But this lie has been beyond my strength. I am collapsing under it." So there you see even more character-defining traits of this sorcerer. I wanted to appear to be a great man. He was posturating, maybe virtue signaling or what have you. But under the immense pressure of lying and pretending, he has collapsed, and here he is. And they continue to discuss where Zarathustra invites him, like he invites all. He invites him with much politeness and guile. "Very well. Up yonder leads the way to where Zarathustra's cave lies. You may seek there him you wish to find." So that's the ultimate in generosity that Zarathustra is portraying, is to love everybody and to try and not try and fix everybody like fixer-uppers, but you want to help people on their way if you think, if you have something to provide. And the last bit here is, "I myself, to be sure, I have never seen a great man. The eye of the subtlest is crude today for what is great. It is a kingdom of the mob." This is just more reiteration of previous sections of just the sheep, the slave morality, and all that. And that's pretty much it.
Wonderful. Not the most in-depth section of the book, but it gives us some fodder to lead us into this next section.
That is right.
So, we've got Retired from Service. Let us read these pages together. Not long after Zarathustra had freed himself from the Sorcerer, however, he again saw someone sitting beside the path he was going. A tall, dark man with a pale, haggard face. This man greatly vexed him. Alas, he said to his heart, there sits disguised affliction. He seems to be of the priestly sort. What do they want in my kingdom? What? I have hardly escaped from that sorcerer. Must another magician cross my path? Some wizard who operates by laying on hands, some gloomy miracle worker by the grace of God. Some anointed world slanderer, may the devil take him. But the devil is never in his proper place. He always comes too late. That confounded dwarf and clubfoot. Thus cursed Zarathustra impatiently in his heart and considered how, with averted gaze, he might slip past the dark man. But behold, it turned out differently. For at the same moment the sitting man had already seen him, and not unlike someone who had unexpected happiness has befallen. He jumped up and went towards Zarathustra. Whoever you may be, traveler, he said, help one who has gone astray, a seeker, an old man who may easily come to harm here. The world here is strange and remote to me, and I hear the howling of wild animals.
And he could have afforded me protection in himself no more. I was seeking the last pious man, a saint and hermit who alone in the forest had as yet heard nothing of what all the world knows today. What does all the world know today, asked Zarathustra? This, perhaps, that the old God in whom all the world once believed no longer lives? Is that so? Answered the old man sadly, and I served that old God until his last hour. Now, however, I am retired from service, without master. And yet I am not free. Neither am I merely merry even for an hour, except in memories. That is why I climbed into these mountains, that I might at last celebrate a festival once more, as becomes an old pope and church father. For no, I am the last pope, a festival of pious memories and divine services. But now he himself is dead, the most pious of men, that saint in the forest who used continually to praise God with singing and muttering. When I found his hut, I no longer found him himself, but I did find 2 wolves in it, howling over his death. For all animals loved him. Then I hurried away. Had I come into these forests and mountains in vain? Then my heart decided to seek another, the most pious of all those who do not believe in God, to seek Zarathustra. Thus spoke the old man and gazed with penetrating eyes at him who stood before him. Zarathustra, however, took the old pope's hand and for a long time regarded it admirably. "Behold, venerable man," he said then, "what a long and beautiful hand. It is the hand of one who has always distributed blessings. But now it holds fast him you seek, me, Zarathustra. It is I, the godless Zarathustra, the same who says, 'Who is more godless than I, that I may rejoice in his teachings?'" Thus spoke Zarathustra, and pierced with his glance the thoughts and reservations of the old pope. At last the latter began. "He who loved and possessed him most, he has now lost him the most also. Behold, am I myself not the more godless of us two now? But who could rejoice in that?" "You served him to the last?" asked Zarathustra thoughtfully. After a profound silence, "Do you know how he died?" Is it true what they say, that pity choked him? That he saw how man hung on the cross and could not endure it? That love for man became his hell and at last his death?
The old Pope, however, did not answer, but looked away shyly and with pained and gloomy expression. "Let him go," said Zarathustra after prolonged reflection, during which he continued to gaze straight into the old man's eye. "Let him go. He is finished. And although it honors you that you speak only good of this deed, God, yet you know as well as I who he was, and that he followed strange paths. Between ourselves," said the old Pope, becoming cheerful, or as I may say, spoken beneath 3 eyes, for he was blind in 1 eye. "In divine matters I am more enlightened than Zarathustra himself, and may well be so. My love served him long years. My will obeyed all his will. A good servant, however, knows everything and many things too, that his master hides from himself. He was a hidden god, full of secrecy. Truly, he even came by a son through no other than a secret and indirect means. At the door of faith in him stands adultery. Whoever honors him as a god of love does not think highly enough of love itself. Did this god not also want to be judged? But the lover loves beyond reward and punishment. When he was young, this god from the Orient, he was hard and revengeful and built himself a hell for the delight of his favorites. But at long length he grew old and soft and mellow and compassionate, more like a grandfather than a father, most like a tottery old grandmother. Then he sat shriveled in his chimney corner, fretting over his weak legs, world-weary, weary of willing, and one day suffocated through his excessive pity. Old Pope Zarathustra interposed at this point. Did you see that with your own eyes? It certainly could have happened like that and also otherwise. When gods die, they always die many kinds of death. But very well, one way or another, one way and the other he is gone. He offended the taste of my ears and eyes. I will say no worse of him. I love everything that is clear-eyed and honest of speech. But he, you must know it, old priest, there was something of your nature about him, something of the priestly nature. He was ambiguous. He was also indistinct. How angry he was with us. This snorter of wrath, because he mistook his meaning. But why did he not speak more clearly? And if our ears were to blame, why did he give us ears that were unable to hear him properly? If there was dirt in our ears, very well. Who put it there? He had too many failures, this potter who had not learned his craft, but that he took vengeance on his pots and creations because they had turned out badly. That was a sin against good taste. There is also good taste in piety. That said at last, away with such a god. Better no god. Better to produce destiny on one's own account. Better to be a fool. Better to be God oneself. What do I hear? The old Pope said at this point, pricking up his ears. Oh, Zarathustra, you are more pious than you believe. With such an unbelief. Some god in you has converted you to your godliness. It is not your piety itself that no longer allows you to believe in a god. And your exceeding honesty will yet carry you off beyond good and evil too. For behold, what has been reserved for you? You have eyes and a mouth and a hand destined for blessing from eternity. One does not bless with the hands alone. in your neighborhood, although you would be the most godless, I scent a stealthy odor of holiness and well-being that comes from long benedictions. It fills me with joy and sorrow.
Let me be your guest, O Zarathustra, for a single night. Nowhere on earth shall I be happier now than with you. Amen. So shall it be, said Zarathustra in great astonishment. Up yonder leads the way. There lies Zarathustra's cave. Indeed, I would gladly lead you there myself. Venerable man, for I love all pious men. But now a cry of distress calls me hurriedly away from you. I will have no more come to harm in my domain. My cave is an excellent refuge. And most of all, I should like to set every sad and sorrowful person again on firm land and firm legs. Who, however, could lift your melancholy from your shoulders? I am too weak for that. Truly, we should have to wait a long time before someone reawakened your god for you. For this old god no longer lives. He is quite dead. Thus spoke Zarathustra. That was quite the engagement with someone of the pious nature. I think historically it's important to note that Nietzsche's father was actually a clergyman. So in one way or another, this could be like Zarathustra, this could be like Nietzsche through proxy talking to his dad through his unconscious. That's just a thought to consider. Ryan, are you with us still?
Yes, I am. And, yeah, I enjoyed this section quite a lot. I think it's, what Zarathustra was saying was blasphemous in terms of Christian theology. Saying that, obviously God is dead, that he does not need a god, he can be the god himself. He can follow his own path, set his own morals, create his own values, attempting to be this bridge of man and the Ubermensch.
And to highlight another point, I'm actually doing more side readings on Nietzsche, and I'm actually reading a thesis paper on Nietzsche in the framework of generosity versus selfishness, and they use a lot of sections from this book, Zarathustra. But what I'm getting at is that... Oh no, what was I getting at?
What were you getting at?
Oh no, what was I getting at?
use that big brain.
Oh my god, what the hell was I getting at?
We need to find out.
Okay, we were talking about Nietzsche, we're talking about God, and we're talking about the Pope. Oh, wait. Yes, yeah, sorry.
Find it.
Of course. Okay. What Nietzsche through Zarathustra is trying to do is trying to provide the most generous gift to help bring sovereignty back to us. Help us become more autonomous and live our own lives and discover who we are. That's what he's trying to do here. And it's very... Once you can look at his work through that type of... Especially this book, through that type of framework, that what he wants is... Yes, he wants the progression of the human spirit to continue and to reach for higher heights through the projection of the Ubermensch. But how he wants to do that is a return to Earth in the spiritual sense. He's always talking about, return to Earth. There's a lot of metaphors with Earth and its reflections within us. But it's also about sovereignty, and that's what he's trying to do and provide for this old priest here. This old priest is, as was stated earlier, he kind of lost his faith. He's an old man now. All he has are the happy, pious memories of the past. So what I'm thinking is maybe, I'm sure we've all experienced this, but we've had a pleasurable experience or lifestyle poisoned by, not poisoned, but maybe we awoke to the real situation, and we took off the rose-tinted glasses to where we were, and then we realized, like, once you make a realization, you can't turn back. So maybe this Pope, like, realized there was some flaw with God, and then he retired from service because he knew that there was a flaw and he could not live under that flaw. But he was in the purgatory of choosing, not choosing, but in the purgatory of, he made the decision to split from God, but he doesn't know where to go from there. And here is Zarathustra kind of saying, let me help you return to your, what was the quote about legs? He said, something about let's help get your legs straight so you can stand and walk again. So again, he's not trying to provide the answers. He's just trying to show you that you can find the answers for yourself. So that's a very powerful highlight for the section.
Yeah, and he also says here, then my heart decided to seek another, the most pious of all those who do not believe in God. And how interesting is that, you know? Because he's been this man who was the most pious of all men. He was the last pope, devoutly religious, and I enjoy that he used the word the most pious of, like, those who do not believe in God. Because, you know, it's the complete opposite. It's almost like this is another stage of Zarathustra where he's meeting his opposing equal, almost, you know, and that, like, the yin and yang. You know, he's meeting someone who was the Pope, the highest level you can be in Christianity, or sorry, Catholicism, and this man Zarathustra, who has rejected God, rejected society, rejected the morals and ideas that have been conformed in society, to find what is missing. Because clearly whatever is in place now is not working. You know, how man has fallen, right? Like, there was tales of these great men and all of this in history, and it just, I guess it feels like that needs to happen again. The age of heroes, I don't want to say, but someone to come among the masses to go above what the narrative of, I guess you could say, being Christ-like, or something along that nature, where it's becoming, how would you say it? I guess, yeah, the best version of man. And in this conversation, we see two people on opposing sides, which I just enjoyed, because even though the Pope, he's dead, right? The Pope that he once was dead. So what is he seeking out? He doesn't know. He came to the forest, and he goes to the hut, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he sees himself being eaten by two wolves. The old self is dead. Right. And he comes to Zarathustra, because essentially he's seeking answers, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I've devoted my entire life to being the most pious of men, and being the holiest of holy, and going to God. And I'm not sure if we got a direct answer for why this happened to him, but it's just interesting to see someone dedicate their whole life to these ideals, and it to be poisoned so drastically that his former self has died, almost like an ego death, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it's just simple as that. He's seeking answers. You know, he knows what it is to be the most pious of men. What does it mean to be a godless man? And, like, that's how, I guess, I know it took me a while to get to this point, but that's how most people should view things. Like, if you want to understand yourself or your values or your ideals better, you have to truly understand the opposing sides, to be able to have civil discourse and not this cognitive dissonance where you hear something that goes against what your reality perceives as correct, and you're going to reject them completely, have an argument, be so frustrated in their opposing ideas that your brain shuts off and goes into a flight or fight mode of protecting the ideals that you represent. So I think it's important to solidify your ideas and your morals and your values so that others cannot change them so willy-nilly or cause you great emotional turmoil, from what you believe in. Your belief should be so solid that the only thing that would change it is concrete evidence, not someone just saying some willy-nilly things.
Yeah, I like what you said. I'm going to bring up some Carl Jung because I like what you said about the yin and yang. So what Carl Jung, one of the things that he says that resonates with me is that when two people meet, it's like a chemical reaction. Both of them leave changed. In other words, if you think about us as chemicals, we all react differently with one another. There's some people, some archetypes, some personalities we all get along with better than others. But regardless of whatever the reaction is, or even if there's no reaction, both chemicals separate and are changed after that. And it's important to realize, to not like look at Zarathustra or look at Nietzsche as like some person who's some preachy person who's like, this is how everyone should live. You have to live this way or you're living wrong. Because that's you're missing the entire point of the book if that's what you think is going on here. Because you see, like you said, Ryan, in this section, Zarathustra himself is learning. Zarathustra has to, in a mature point of view, like rationalize through what this retired pope is saying to him about him being the most pious individual that he has met. And that is helping Zarathustra grow as well. And then to return to your old point, which also, I mean, that should be a goal, I think, with interactions with everybody, is that in an interaction, like, you should want to exchange, like, nutrients for each other's growth. Like, you should want to leave an interaction with somebody, like, with some new, information or new perspective, or maybe, like, you left after maybe you were in a bad mood and then you talked to someone and then they elevated your mood and now you're happy. And like, it should be more about helping and giving with this generosity, which is what he's doing here. And then to return to an older point, I don't want to rant too long, but this is a separate point that you brought up, that when you posited the question of not knowing why the Pope was looking to begin with, like why he is abandoning his faith, I think he's abandoning his faith because, or I should say, an example of why he's abandoning his faith is the fact that he's not confrontational when Zarathustra. I mean, he's not confrontational at all, but he's not confrontational, especially when Zarathustra is bringing up the fact that when he says things like, "Don't you see it too, old Pope? You see the flaws. You see this God for what he really is." And there's no like rebuttal. He understands that he, through knowing the Bible and the text for so long, has identified these flaws, and maybe he didn't want to confront the fact that he knew that it was bullshit, or maybe that it just wasn't for him. But now here we are. Does that vibe?
Yeah, and answering a bit more about why, he kind of claims that he's godless, but in this section here, on the top of 273, the old Pope, however, did not answer, but looked away shyly and with a pained and gloomy expression. From how Zarathustra talked about how God died. And it's like, if he was a truly godless man, wouldn't he just fully accept what Zarathustra was saying, rather than looking away shyly, as, almost embarrassed to hear such things?
Maybe. You're saying that he still has some, like, reserve of compassion for this old god?
I'd say so. I mean,
maybe like how when you this is gonna be a funny example, but bear with me. Maybe this is like if you were to substitute the situation. Let's say you were talking to me because I was down in the dumps because I had just broken up with a girl that was like too toxic for me. But when you were like, telling me that, like, roasting her, but giving me the truth of like, yo, look at what she was for what she was, and then I look away like painfully, is because I had some attachment to that individual, like, emotionally, and so by doing that, like, even though that's the truth, it's 100% the truth, and that is what it is, because of that prior like deep rootedness. It makes it hard to, like, it takes a while. Healing takes a lot of time, emotionally and physically. So,
sure.
So that's a good
and
point.
it's also like you were talking about how young, the yin and yang thing, where like you're exchanging between one another and you're changing one another.
Yes, sir.
It's like that's like I think there's like scientific evidence to back that up. Like, like just shaking hands, like you're exchanging like pheromones or I think it's something like that, and like, I think there was like this subconscious thing where like you shake someone's hand and nearly everyone touches their face after shaking someone's hand, which is like spreading their whatever, their like
their pussy juice all over your face.
But I don't want to say no. But they're like, what would that be called? Like their pheromones or chemicals. Like bodily composition, chemical, something along those lines.
You can just say like the residue of that person.
Yeah. So it's like a real thing. Like when you connect with someone, you really are connecting. And have you seen like some of those DMT pictures where it's like the interconnected two beings, like with their like cardiovascular system, like the veins and everything?
They're like, those are wild.
Interconnected, like. The subconscious is so interesting. Like, I think there's been studies on like ayahuasca trips. Not sure legit studies or not, but like people, like 8 people will go to a shaman and do ayahuasca, and they'll all have the same vision and experience, even though there was like no like words inducing those thoughts in their head. They just saw and experienced all the same thing as one. So it's like I guess we haven't talked about hemisync yet, but it's like all these things. Like, I think humans' ability for like subconscious interactions is so much more important than people think. And I was having a think about this. I'm just gonna add this. I know it's random, but it's like you emit whatever your natural smell, your pheromones, and it's like the opposing partner who smells your natural smell and like does that pheromone connection thing, and your smells work with each other. I'm complicating this. It's complicated to think about, but basically, like if you're wearing like a cologne or a scented thing, I'm wondering if it would be possible to not like meet someone who's your true mate from like the distracting scent of the perfume, because it's like I don't know if you can simplify this to me. Basically, you have your natural smell, those pheromones connect perfectly with someone else, and that would be, I guess, your ideal partner. But is it possible that like wearing some sort of whatever deodorant, cologne, perfume that masks your true smell and that people find attractive, you have a connection with them from that, have a relationship, and it doesn't work out because you weren't truly meant to be? I don't know what kind of rant that was.
Oh, buddy. Hey, everybody, we lost him. This man went off to the deep end talking about some witchy woo, haha, shabana nani now, fucking magic and shit, dog. What are you talking about? DMT, hemisync? What are you talking about? You can't prove.
Dude, are our pineal glands being calcified or not?
Ryan, I got my vaccine, dude. I'm fucking. There is no pineal gland. That's a rumor, bro. You can't prove it. Show it to me. Dude, hold on.
Get your drill out.
Let me decompress my head real quick. So the end of that, I can actually contribute. Yes. So listen, people. Ryan, you hit the nail almost on the head. You hit the nail on the head if you were using a shovel instead of a hammer. Like, it technically did the job. You know what I mean?
Well, I was just so confused because I'd never really thought that process out. So it's like,
no.
I've never really thought about it. So
you are 100% correct. People, hang on tight because we're going deep here. So, people, just like animals, actually do release pheromones. Pheromones are like indications. They're not like technically visible. It's not like I can see the vapors coming off of Ryan, or like a girl can see them. But pheromones are these things that we produce, almost like if you think of like an aura or like your Nen, if you're like a Hunter x Hunter fan, where it is an indication of your immune system, an indication of your genetics. And so that's one method, a very important method in which how we choose our mates actually is when you're physically with somebody, you are like on an instinctual level are figuring out if your genes are compatible. Is this person far enough away from my genetic like family genes where our children are going to be good? Are there like a puzzle piece? Is their immune system stronger in some areas than mine, and then we complete each other? That actually does happen. And let me drop some bombs on you people real quick. There has been studies done, and the evidence is in, the scientific consensus is in, and things like birth control severely inhibit the individual's capabilities of determining their significant other's pheromones, if they match or not. And oftentimes this does happen. I forget the percentage, but it was shocking when I like found it. But it's important to look up the percentage, because using the word shocking seems like it's like too dramatic, and it may be like way more than what it actually is. But
0.4% reduction in your ability.
No, it was like significant. What happened is these couples, they would do studies on these couples where the female was on birth control like since they met, and she would get off the birth control like when they were getting ready to have children, and all of a sudden the woman would lose interest in the guy and just not be physically attracted at all. And so what the conclusion was is what birth control is doing by playing God and giving these pills that trick the female body into thinking it is pregnant and it is like housing a child, that switches mother mode on in the female to where the pheromones she now is trying to pick up on is the ones that are closer to her family, because she's trying to stick within the tribe, because she has a very delicate thing she's producing, which is a baby that she's trying to protect. So she's trying to return to the family tribe so she's protected, so she can give birth to a healthy and pass on the genes. So that's fucking crazy. That means if you're on birth control, you should really get off of it and make sure that you're with someone that you're actually like with. So there's your knowledge drop for the day, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know whose spiel was better. Mine being some foo-foo smell, and yours being incest is all right.
Hey, listen, when you're in Alabama, things just slide different, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, things lie different. Well, I'll finish that off with a mythology... what's that? Yeah, just a myth, right? So Zeus, I guess for when they were beginning man, humans were four-armed, four-legged beings. And basically what happened was Zeus split them in two. So now you're two separate beings, and that was kind of the story of finding your soulmate, is that Zeus split us in two, and we're forever trying to become whole once again by meeting with someone and basically, doing the naughty and connecting as one once again.
Yeah, the whole soulmate mythology.
Yeah, but I think that kind of links in with what we were saying, because it's so weird that there's I think it's important to know how lacking your ability to control the self is, how weak you are to the subconscious. And that's why it's I think everyone is dumb, but it's most people, or I guess people wouldn't think about it, or maybe would, but most people think they're very smart or whatever. But it's if you put that same person in another person's life, they could be very stupid at doing their tasks and whatnot. So it's just like it's very weird how the subconscious plays such a large act without us even knowing. You know, it's like people's perceptions and like the way people act isn't because of who they are. It's dependent on like the environment and what they saw and the perspectives of reality that they have versus yours, which causes them to conflict. You've experienced different things, they've experienced different things, and then when those two come crashing heads, it's not going to align because what you've seen in the world and what someone else is. So it's like, and then like your subconscious playing with the pheromones and like all this stuff. It's like how much control do you really have over who you decide to be your partner, who like what you decide to be in life and all this stuff when it's like all this just chemical combustion in your body of urges and neurochemistry and chemicals in the brain firing and causing your interests and stuff. It's I don't know, something, you know?
Something else, saying it right, ain't it, boy? Yeah.
My subconscious is like, please stop, senpai. I don't want to think about this anymore.
Yeah, what is the term? The freedom of, what's the term? Autonomy? No, it's like free will. God damn it, free will. What the hell, brain? Yeah, I'm running on fumes now too, I guess. Yeah, your whole dude. That's a string of podcasts right there. The whole free will thing. Because you're right. None of us truly know how much of our life is being directed by like what we think we are as like a conscious being, and how much of it is being directed by our instinct in our genetics and like all the data that's compressed in our DNA.
Well, it's like if we were both cloned at babies, and one of our babies was put into the forest to fend for itself, like the two yous would be worlds apart. You know, it's like the idea of yourself that you're this person and that you do these things and you do these things well, these things bad, you like this, you don't like that. Like there would be probably like no similar similar traits between you two from like not experiencing any human interactions, anything else human, because you know that the person or your clone baby is in the forest away from all civilization. You know, it's like the accumulation of all your experiences and perspectives and things you've seen from child to adulthood, that's what molds you as a person. So it's like without society, who would you really be? Is the question.
And that's a very important question that got me. You let me know when you want to stop, because like we're riffing off of such good ideas, but the problem is that they're such good ideas and you can talk about them forever. So I'll go off of what you just said most recently. I'll try not to keep adding on to previous statements, but about where you're born. So that's the whole premise, or one of the whole premises behind moral relativism, which is another thing that Nietzsche has came up with, is through explorations of different cultures, languages, and history. He, like a lot of people, understood that the way you think, the way the world is heavily based not only on nature being your genetics and all that stuff, but nurture, your environment. Where are you in the world? What time period is it? All of these things are going to influence how you look at the world. Are you in medieval Europe in the Dark Ages? Then the way you look at God is going to be different than someone now in America, and all that stuff. And so moral relativism is important, though, to realize that there is no correct set of moralities. There's only a good set of moralities for you, and you have to discover them.
Yeah. It's like if you were raised as a child soldier in Africa, you probably think killing people is pretty cool, huh?
Oh, I also have bad news for you, Ryan. They did, Ryan. They did clone us. They have clones of all of us. I know where they are. Do you want me to take you?
Nah, I'm good. I might feel compelled to do things I'd be ashamed of.
If it's a clone, are there really like any laws for them? You know what I mean, bro?
Is he? Yeah, just wait until Big Pharma owns your intellectual property.
Wait till Big Pharma owns your DNA, dude. They're like, yeah, that's all of our vaccines we put in you. You know how Monsanto trademarked their pesticide, so their pesticide would spray over into like neighboring farms and contaminate the DNA of those plants. And by law, those plants now belong to Monsanto. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, that's what do you think is happening with these vaccines?